just going to be grabbing some old pots I have here in the garage. Today I'm going to be showing you how to propagate lilac bushes. I've got a lot of bushes around the house and I'd like to add a few more. Here is my first lilac bush I'm going to be working on, and I'm just going to put my bucket here and we'll put the stems in there. I've never pruned this tree before, so I have to work a little bit harder to find the new growth. I don't have my reference points. So what you're looking for is the new growth of the season, and you can tell that by the coloration. So if you look down here on this stem, this is older because it's a darker gray, and then you have a lighter gray shade here. You can cut right behind the node. So this would be a node. Here's a node, there's a node. Here's some good new growth because you can see the lighter gray color on the branch. Down at the base is going to be a lot darker. So I'm probably going to do most of my cuttings from this side of the bush. Here's a good cutting right here. So I'm going to go behind this notch right here and take a cutting. So here I'm just going to angle it at 45 degrees and snip. Here's what it looks like. So right below the node, you've got a lot of good nodes for growth and new leaves once it takes root. A little hard to do one-handed, but I want to make sure that I show you how I'll be cutting this. So here's a good new one. And same thing, we're just going to go behind where you see the little notch right there. Good angle. I've had these pruners for a long time, but you just always want to make sure you take some alcohol and swab it before you do some new cuttings, because that'll keep it from getting infected. It has a better chance of survival. Here's a nice fresh twig to reference. As you can see, there's some new shoots from where the seeds had fallen. Those would be quite nice in the spring. Since we know that this is a new growth, you can see how smooth it is and light colored compared to the rough texture of the old growth. So that's how you're going to decipher. And this already has some rough texture coming on, so that's probably from the year prior. But this is what you're looking for if you haven't ever pruned a tree before. In the backyard, I have a different variety of lilac bush. So we're just going to be starting with this section because it's so close to the fence. And I'm just going to do a lot of pruning off of that, since I would be trimming it back anyway because I like to walk through this pathway. This one is actually quite messy with branches, so I'm going to trim these off because I want all the energy from the roots here to get growing stronger, instead of sending up energy to all of these branches for leaf growth. So I'm just going to trim that up a bit. So this one, you can see that this looks like it's an old growth based off of the bark and rough texture, but off of it is a shoot that is definitely a spring bloom from last year. So that's a good candidate right here. And we're just going to cut right here. So I'm all done with my cuttings, and I have quite a few here. I have a lot of smaller ones. I even took a couple big ones just to try out and see what happens. I brought them in the house where it's warmer. I'm actually going to go ahead and plant these and try to use my house as a greenhouse. I don't have a greenhouse, and I would like to get some growth on them before spring. It's January right now. Here's some ideas for planters I use. This is just a can that I clean out and take the paper off. Diced tomatoes are a good one to have because it's quite large, bigger than the standard can. I save all these, and then this is just an old planter I had. My daughter made this one for me. It's half of a Pringles can, but you can get a nice root going and something like that. And then of course pickle jars are just my favorite because they seem to like hold extra nutrients in there. I don't know if it's the vinegar or what, but they really take off anytime I put seeds in pickle jars. So I'll be doing that for this as well. And then these are just some from roses I had, planters. So anything you have around the house that is any kind of shape to put soil in and throw a propagation in will work. Here is my soil bag that I always have one inside because in the winter they'll freeze outside, or even in the garage they get pretty hard. So I just keep one readily available for any time I'm bummed out from the winter that keeps going, it's freezing, I can't plant. So I do stuff like this to keep myself from getting too depressed. I just got my little shovel from the Dollar Tree, so you can pick one up from there if you don't have one, or use, I mean, I've used spoons before when I didn't have a shovel, or your hands, but I'm just throwing soil in there. Just plain old soil, and I just make sure that I don't overwater. So things you need to get started. I have a pickle jar I filled with water. I'm also going to be using this take root rooting hormone. I just recently got this and I haven't tried it yet. I've always done propagation without rooting hormone. So I don't think you absolutely have to have this. If you don't have it, you can still try your hand at propagating. I've had a lot of success without using it, but today we're going to give it a try and see if it just makes it go faster. But if you don't have the rooting hormone, it's just going to take your plant a little longer to grab roots. So all you're going to do is dip it in the water like that, and then dip it into your rooting hormone, and you're going to just shove it right down in there into the soil. And I'm using this one planter for a lot of twigs, and then you never know what's going to take root and what's not going to take root. So once you see leaf growth, then you know your propagation was successful. You can see this is very fresh and still has life in it because it's green. Over here I discarded this one because you can see it's dead. It's brown, it just breaks. There's no life in this twig. So I'm not gonna waste time trying to root it. I'm just gonna discard that branch. So make sure that you also check where you are cutting to see if there's life in it. So I filled up my pickle jar, and I'm gonna start on this one because I filled up that planter pretty good. And like I said, these just act as a really great greenhouse. The glass jar just really holds in moisture extra, and the light really gets through, and they do well. Just make sure before the roots get too established, you want to pull it out of the pickle jar and replant it, because it does have a hard time coming out of the pickle jar if your roots are too invasive. So I'm just gonna do one cutting in that one. So I'm all done with this one. I'm just doing 2 since it's a smaller planter. I moistened the soil, patted it in there pretty good, and now I'm just placing it in my south facing window. You can also put Ziploc bags over your cuttings to help create a miniature greenhouse. So we're all done with today's lesson. If you have a nice south facing window or any window you have with a lot of light, you just want to put your cuttings in it and monitor the temperature of the room. They want to be above 55 degrees in order to sprout the leaves. Only time will tell what's going to sprout, what's not. Once they start sprouting the leaves, I usually transport them into their own bucket because I don't want the roots to tie into each other, and then it's going to make breaking them up harder and you risk hurting the plant. I will do an updated video once I start seeing some leaf growth. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of free movies available. We also have some homeschool things for kids. So, good luck!